Let's get some more perspective on this subject. And I'm now being joined live from our Abuja studios by the Chief Executive Officer of the Convention for Business Integrity, Mr. Soji Apampa. I want to thank you so much indeed for joining us on the News at 10. Now, the federal government has dismissed the Transparency International CPI report, saying that it is not based on facts and that the concrete achievements of Buhari's administration are not even factored in that. What's your own assessment of that report?
Well, it is true that the perceptions index is based on exactly what it says, perceptions, and that it is a survey of surveys. It's an index of various indices, but traditionally it has been used as a barometer. So although it might not it might tell you that there's something stinking, something rotten about a certain country. It does not have the capacity to tell you exactly what and exactly where you need to look to deal with the matter. But it is a well-accepted indicator for the level of rot within a country. And certainly many international investors, when they're doing their country risk assessments, will start from Transparency International's Corruption Perceptions Index. So even though it might not be based on fact and it's based on perceptions, it is still used as a placeholder for what is happening in reality.
Now, much of the time, as in the TICPI report that we saw, the issue of corruption is most times associated with the public sector. Does it then mean that businesses and private sectors have no culpable impact on this?
No, it doesn't mean that at all. And I think that is a big gap in the way that corruption, the issue of dealing with corruption, has been approached in Nigeria, for instance. Or if I can say, how it has been approached by the civil society in general. People tend to talk about corruption in society, corruption in government, but forgetting the enabler that is business, or the enabler that is professional services. You'll find that most corrupt acts require lawyers, accountants, real estate agents, and various other professionals in order to be successful, in quotes, in those kinds of activities. So leaving them out is a big error. And not having an answer for those who are partners in the equation of corruption. For instance, you find that public procurement is very often used as a conduit for illicit funds and for stealing public funds. And you find that the sensation in the media is about the public actors who are involved, forgetting that there were private companies who are also involved in the transaction. But it's not only private to public, even public sector to public sector. Many professional services firms are unable to get the briefs and the business they're looking for, even from the private sector, without engaging in kickbacks. So you'll find that bribery and corruption is not limited to the public sector. There is a lot going on in the private sector as well.
Precisely, because you have championed the cause for clean business, as you will. How tough has it been, though, for you and your organization in this instance, in trying to ensure good corporate governance becomes the order of the day?
We've been on this journey since 1997. So this is 21 years, and it shows you that this has been a long, hard-fought battle. But thankfully, every year since the return to democracy in 1999 has made it easier to speak about the issues of corruption and indeed to pursue some of the innovations around dealing with corruption. The current corporate governance rating system, the efforts on that project have begun since the year 2010, inspired, as you had in your report, by the near collapse of the Nigerian stock market in 2008-2009, and the problems being traced to a lack of integrity, poor corporate governance, poor regulatory environment, and so on, which then spurred us to see this as an opportunity to get business to take responsibility for what it can do on its own to try to improve the governance record of the private sector in the country.
Because I'm really wondering how the government should approach this and trying to ensure that the next TICPI report is much better and favors Nigeria, which has been recording consistent downfalls or pitch holes right from 2015. What would you say in that regard?
The first thing I would say is that there is a national strategy to combat corruption, which is built on 5 pillars. The first pillar is on enforcement and sanctions. The second is on repatriating or fighting for the proceeds of corruption that have left the country. The third pillar is around an ethical revolution, around prevention, and around public engagement. But you'll find that there has been an overemphasis on enforcement and sanctions and on trying to get these monies back, but not enough effort has been placed on preventive measures. It's akin to having a broken faucet with water leaking everywhere, and then you're running after those who are fetching the water without fixing the faucet. By the time you run around for 4 years trying to catch those who have fetched some water illegally, then you will have another set to run after for the next 4 years. And it doesn't make any sense at all, except you block the leakages. And to do that, you have to take on preventive measures. To put in preventive measures, you must be prepared to do corruption risk analyses. It must be the bread and butter of our anti-corruption agencies, of civil society, of anyone who wants to deal with corruption. And based on where they find the corruption risks, then they should also come up with integrity plans. What needs to be done to curb corruption that is occurring in that particular way? And that way, you keep closing each of the leaking faucets, you keep fixing them. If we'd been doing that since 1999, we would have had several years. Now, even more than a decade of improvements to the system, rather than the continuous running after, only running after those who are perceived to have drawn waters from the well illegally.
We must thank you so much indeed for talking to us. The executive, my apologies, I'm afraid that's the much we can take. The Chief Executive Officer of the Convention for Business Integrity, Mr. Soji Apampa. I want to thank you so much indeed for sharing your thoughts with us.